DEI. It's a hot topic right now. A lot of people are wondering if it's dead. Is it dead? What does DEI really mean for businesses in Canada? Let's pick this apart together. Let's talk about what's been happening across our friendly border. Let's talk about what's happening in Canada, and let's talk about how businesses can create the right balance in their own workplaces to satisfy the needs of their stakeholders when it comes to DEI. Simply put, DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion. So diversity is typically known as diversity of culture, diversity of skin color, diversity of family of origin, of religious affiliation, of sexual orientation, of family status. Inclusion in the workplace is about including various people, experience, opinions, perspectives at decision-making tables and innovation tables. And equity, simply put, is treating everybody equal in the workplace. Equal pay, equal opportunity, based on their skills and qualifications. So we talk about DEI, and I always get the question, still today, what is DEI? It stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it's typically focused on how employers respond to people of various backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives in the workplace. DEI initiatives have their historical roots in civil rights movements in the 1960s. We saw the growth of DEI initiatives through the 60s and the 70s and the 80s with the injection of the feminist movement and women in the workplace and this whole notion that we could have everything as women. Initially, DEI initiatives were intended to create equality of representation in the workplace. And so when we saw DEI movements in the 60s and 70s, it really was about creating what we would call a representative workforce. And so in the mid-80s, you saw the evolution from, let's hire some people of color or some women in the workplace to let's do targeted affirmative action hiring and hire First Nations people. This process of affirmative action and trying to create population representation inside the workplace did cause a hiring process that was less focused on merit and more focused on the diverse background of the individual, their skin color or their place of origin. As we've evolved over the next 20 or 30 years since the 1980s, DEI has really become a platform to talk about and implement policies, processes, and systems inside the corporate world, inside the business world, that represent minority voice and stakeholders that feel like they've been underrepresented in the workplace. Examples of groups would include immigrants that are coming to Canada, could include people of different skin color, people of different religious orientation, or people from different family backgrounds or sexual orientation. So DEI has really evolved from a massive movement to, for instance, bring women into the workplace or people of color into the workplace, to a movement where the corporate world and the business world is being asked to take a representative stance for special interest groups. The controversy around DEI today is really about this notion of the pendulum swinging maybe a little bit too far. What we are seeing south of the Canadian border is a political movement to, I'm going to say, stabilize that pendulum swing and find balance inside corporate America. There's a lot of companies in the US that have taken initiatives to either repeal, pull back, or change their language around DEI initiatives based on some political maneuvering. But there's also been sort of a cataclysmic, seismic shift in the way that we view these policies and practices in the corporate world. A lot of DEI initiatives are approaching that intersection between business operations and values not just corporate values, but personal value streams. And we're seeing stakeholders, particularly local stakeholders south of the Canadian border, taking exception to some of these more lavish DEI policies and practices that large corporations like Walmart or even the FBI have implemented in the past. Those policies and practices are being literally thrown in the garbage, and corporations are taking funding and budget allocations off the table to serve these special initiatives. It's a little bit scary, to be honest with you. I think that there's a strong business case for diversity, equity, inclusion in every business, in every government, in a publicly traded business and in a private institution. And that value proposition is important and drives innovation. That there's a number of different motivating sort of collisive factors that are causing this shift in DEI south of the border, and also it is causing a shift here in Canada, albeit a little more moderated. Politics is number one. So they have leadership that is saying, enough of this. We're going to move back to a merit-based system. We're not going to worry about population representation in our workplaces, and we're not going to hold businesses accountable for that. But you also see in the case of Budweiser and Tractor Supply that the communities that those businesses serve are standing up and saying, I'm not going to put my dollars in your company pocket if what you're going to do is invest in this stuff that isn't aligned with my values or that I don't see brings value to the table. Tractor Supply is a very excellent example of this. They had a change in leadership a number of years ago, and that leadership went above and beyond to create a very welcoming, diverse, inclusive, open environment. And they did a fabulous job at it. But they're serving the farmers of the South, Eastern Midwest. We even have Tractor Supply as far north as Montana. And their customers were not on board with their consumer dollars being spent on initiatives that didn't further the service that they were offering. There was not an alignment between the customer values and the business values. And so that is a huge stakeholder that is having a massive impact on businesses sort of pulling away from these policies and practices. Publicly, we're seeing companies, on the extreme end, completely throwing out their budget and their policies and practices. So companies that have created diversity, equity, and inclusion committees or have, stamped these value systems on their walls are literally peeling those stickers off the wall and throwing them in the garbage. They are a 180-degree about face on the DEI. On the less radical side, we're seeing companies soften their language about it. We're seeing companies repealing some of their budget dollars towards that stuff. We are still seeing companies that are embracing DEI, but they're doing it in a less public, quieter type of manner, knowing that diversity of opinion, thought, experience, background, perspective, and including that diversity on decision-making and innovation is the key to that business's success. There's a balance that these businesses are discovering that works for them in order to serve their client base, in order to serve their key stakeholders. And that's really what this initiative is about. It's not about following the herd of sheep that are moving in one particular direction, maybe swinging the pendulum from here to over here again. It's about finding that middle spot that serves your business, that serves your stakeholders, and that really aligns with your personal, but more importantly, your company values. Canada's a different place than the US. We have a different approach to business and a different approach to DEI. That's not to say that we are not impacted by the media influence and the influence of the large corporations in the US that are choosing to swing their pendulum hard the other way. But we typically respond more moderately to situations like this. And to some extent, I'm going to say Canadian business owners tend to be a little bit more careful about the audience that they're engaging with, and are less likely to take a radical 180-degree turn when it comes to policies such as this. Like I said before, there's a strong business case for DEI in every business, particularly if you're scaling and growing and innovating. There's a balance that needs to be struck between, what do your stakeholders really need and want, and what are you trying to achieve as a business, and what is the right middle point for you in terms of your investment in DEI. Historically, in human resources, what we have seen is, in the span of my career, which is probably close to 25 or 30 years, what we've seen is there's been these hot topics, right? Like safety at the turn of the century in 2000. Safety was a really big thing. Every company out there had to have safety listed as one of its core values. And, companies have done a very, very good job of making sure people go home every night with all their fingers and toes. And safety has now become part of their normal workplace behavior. And so we've seen a lot of those companies pulling safety off as a core value because it's a norm, it's an expectation. And I think that we've seen a number of hot topics in HR practice that have sort of like, ooh, this is a big thing. The next big thing I want to talk about is the word engagement. Like, what does that really mean? Not to open a can of worms, but right now we're dealing with DEI, and it's a hot topic. The reality of it is that everybody is putting DEI in their corporate value statements, and in the US we're seeing a shift there. In Canada we're going to see a shift. It is going to become part of normal culture in a workplace to accept diversity and inclusion as just a normal way of effectively doing business. It'll move itself from that values paradigm to a normal way of practicing. So respect in the workplace, no sexual harassment, no harassment, no bullying. Those have all become legislative normal practices in Canada. And I believe DEI will never be legislated. It is part of the Human Rights Code in Canada and provincially in each province. But I think it will become a valued norm inside of businesses that are innovating and growing and scaling. So the short answer is no, DEI is not dead. It's finding its place in every business. And business owners need to spend the time thinking about what diversity means in their business, what inclusion means in their business, and what equity means in their business. And if they can define that for their business, then they can start defining what it looks like and what they need to invest in going forward. And without putting significant thought into who are we and what does diversity mean to us in our business, you will make mistakes and you will overinvest or underinvest. And it's prudent for these business owners to talk to their key stakeholders, their clients, their customers, their investors, their employees, their leaders, and ask them, what does it mean for our business to be diverse? What does it mean to be inclusive? Because in my humble opinion, as a business owner myself, it doesn't mean you don't hire the best person for the job. It means that you hire the best person for the job, regardless of family status, regardless of place of origin, regardless of religious affiliation. But it means that when you come to make decisions in your business, you include diverse opinions, perspectives, experience at that decision-making table. It's critical for innovation to have these different ways of looking at things and these different experiences from different cultural backgrounds, from different educational backgrounds, to hit on the right decision and strike the right level of innovation for where you're going. It's critical. So it's not dead. It just needs to find its spot. Business owners today would be prudent and pragmatic to, on an annual basis, look at their purpose, vision, and values. And that's just good business practice. Who are we? Where are we going? What's going to keep us on the pathway there? Part of understanding where DEI sits in that value stream is also considering what does diversity, equity, and inclusion look like for our business, and what value does each of these individual initiatives, diversity, equity, and inclusion, bring to our business. For people that know me, they know me as a very pragmatic businesswoman. And I believe that when you make a business investment, there needs to be an ROI on that. Now, ROI could be dollars in your pocket. It could be new customers. It could be new business opportunities. It could be, attracting the right talent to your team. It could be intangible, like we've created a very happy, workplace culture where people love to come to work every day, and so their productivity is like this. And sometimes ROI is really, really hard to measure. But there does need to be some effort into understanding DEI in your business. First of all, questioning what is the definition of diversity, equity, and inclusion for my business, and where does it sit? And then developing a strategy or even limitations around what you're going to do. So a really good example a couple of years ago was the Black Lives Matter movement as a response to the death in the US. And businesses were compelled by special interest groups to post a black screen on their social media. And we were told as individuals that if you didn't post it, you were inherently racist. And I feel like a lot of companies just followed their herd of sheep and did what they were supposed to do because socially that was the compelling message at that time. And I've also seen companies invest heavily in DEI. Tractor Supply is a good example, and then getting smacked down by their key stakeholders and saying, no, we don't want our hard-earned money, after-tax dollars, going towards these initiatives that don't bring value to my farm or to my herd of cattle. So it's prudent to understand, what does DEI mean in your business? And secondly, what do my stakeholders want? What do my customers want? What do my clients want? What do my employees want? And then ask yourself this critical question as a business owner. Am I a sheep following a herd, a social initiative that brings no value to my business? And I'm not saying DEI isn't valuable, but I think that business owners need to be real with themselves and their leadership teams and saying, what value does this bring to our business? Does it bring value? And if it does bring value, how can we capitalize on that? The bottom line is, if businesses lose money because they are investing in initiatives that their client base does not want them to invest in, they will have no jobs for anybody. And so it's prudent to go and invest the time and energy in understanding where DEI falls in your value stream, not just for the business, not just for you, the owner, but for all of your stakeholders, and then make a prudent investment towards it. All of this is sort of couched in my experience and my opinion. So I'm a business owner. I've been in business for 18 years. I've seen things come and go. I've watched corporations, public and private, be held accountable for social initiatives that they probably shouldn't be involved in. I think understanding what DEI means for your business and go as far as to define it. What does it mean for your business? For my business, it means that I have HR professionals working for me that come from various backgrounds. That's diversity. And I don't care what color their skin is. I don't care how they show up. I want them to show up as their authentic selves, and I want them to be super happy. And at the end of the day, skin color, religious affiliation, family status, all that kind of stuff really doesn't matter in my business. I say that, but then, I know maybe someone would disagree with me on that. I think that there are very practical ways that businesses today can say, hey, I believe in this stuff. I know it's important. And, I'm going to hire people that are, and making statements like, I'm going to hire the best people for the job. And I'm going to actively manage any biases that my hiring team might have. So investing the time and energy in looking for systemic bias inside your business or just systemic discrimination. Making sure your hiring practices and your promotion practices and your succession practices are bias-free and discrimination-free. Really, all of these DEI initiatives came out of the 80s and 90s as an effort to quell any form of discrimination that was happening because someone had a name that maybe most people couldn't pronounce. So do they need a DEI policy? Maybe, if you decide that it's a really important part of your business and that you need to satisfy your stakeholders by having a policy, yeah. But I think that the most important thing to do is to ask and listen. Ask your stakeholders and listen to what they're asking for at the end of the day. We have a whole new generation of workers coming up that value these things in a completely different way than even the generation before them and the generation before that generation. And so it's prudent for me as a business owner in my 50s to look down the pipeline and go, I've got some 25-year-olds coming on board. What do they really value? The lucky thing for me is I have sort of 3 kids in that genre, so I kind of know. But not all business owners have access to that information, and so it's prudent to ask. In terms of what can business owners do, I think it's ask and listen. Develop systems and processes that are as bias-free as they possibly can be. Look for areas in your business that might be systemically discriminating against the people that are coming into your business as clients and customers or employees, and the people that are in your business that are looking for promotion and opportunity and growth. And then I think beyond that, when social initiatives arise, like the Black Lives Matters movement, I think you need to talk to your marketing team. You need to talk to your communications team, and you really need to assess and align your response to those social initiatives to your company values. And if your company values say, we are going to be socially active community citizens that support these special interest movements, then you need to define your message around that, whatever that looks like. Four key action items that I think business owners should be focused on in order to find their balanced approach to DEI are, number one, listen to your key stakeholders. Go out and ask your clients and your customers and your employees and your potential new employees what really matters to them and what sort of initiatives do they value? What do they like about your company? The second thing is take the time with your leadership team to really define what diversity, equity, and inclusion means for your business. And it's going to be different for every business. You can look up a textbook definition of it, but the reality of it is that every business should understand what diversity means inside their business. And so, taking into consideration what your key stakeholders have said, and then working with your leaders to define DEI. The third thing is take a really close look at your policies, your practices, and your systems, and scrub them to make sure that they're as bias-free as possible, that they're not systemically discriminating, and that the policies, particularly the artifacts you've created inside your business, are representative of the diversity, equity, and inclusion that fits for your business, that is aligned with your stakeholder wants and needs. And then the fourth key point is from that launching point, you can develop a very balanced approach to DEI so that when social initiatives arise that you're being asked to respond to, you can very clearly articulate your response to those social initiatives and stay informed in a way that is meaningful for your business. So those are the four key things. Listen. The second thing is define. The third thing is scrub. And then the fourth thing is implement and be proactive. Businesses in Canada can't afford to do nothing. I think that it's prudent for all business owners to put some thought into this, for the simple reason that the person you hire tomorrow is likely coming from a generation of workers that thinks differently than you. And so I believe that it's important for you to have some semblance of a notion around how DEI fits into your value stream in your business. What is that? It doesn't have to cost you anything, dollars and cents wise, to put some thought into that and share it with your team. Four key action items that I think business owners should be focused on in order to find their balanced approach to DEI are: number one, listen to your key stakeholders. Go out and ask your clients and your customers and your employees and your potential new employees what really matters to them and what sort of initiatives do they value, what do they like about your company. The second thing is take the time with your leadership team to really define what diversity, equity, and inclusion means for your business. And it's going to be different for every business. You can look up a textbook definition of it, but the reality of it is that every business should understand what diversity means inside their business. And so, taking into consideration what your key stakeholders have said, and then working with your leaders to define DEI. The third thing is take a really close look at your policies, your practices, and your systems, and scrub them to make sure that they're as bias-free as possible, that they're not systemically discriminating, and that the policies, particularly the artifacts you've created inside your business, are representative of the diversity, equity, and inclusion that fits for your business, that is aligned with your stakeholder wants and needs. And then the fourth key point is from that launching point, you can develop a very balanced approach to DEI so that when social initiatives arise that you're being asked to respond to, you can very clearly articulate your response to those social initiatives and stay informed in a way that is meaningful for your business. So those are the four key things. Listen. The second thing is define. The third thing is scrub. And then the fourth thing is implement and be proactive. Businesses in Canada can't afford to do nothing. I think that it's prudent for all business owners to put some thought into this, for the simple reason that the person you hire tomorrow is likely coming from a generation of workers that thinks differently than you. And so I believe that it's important for you to have some semblance of a notion around how DEI fits into your value stream in your business. What is that? It doesn't have to cost you anything, dollars and cents wise, to put some thought into that and share it with your team. The bottom line is DEI is not dead. And what's happening is the pendulum that's maybe swung too far is coming back to a place of balance. And that place of balance is different for every business. A pragmatic approach to assessing what that balance is in your business is the smart pathway forward. The best thing business owners can do is set aside their personal values and beliefs and listen openly to their key stakeholders so that they can understand what's right for their business. That's the pathway forward. With this information and the help of a skilled HR team like Synergy, businesses are in the best position to find a balanced approach to DEI that helps the company achieve their overall vision. It's the right time for businesses to be putting the thought and effort into defining a better and more balanced approach to DEI. And if you're ready to take those steps into creating a thriving workplace, we're happy to be the HR team that partners with you. The bottom line is DEI is not dead. And what's happening is the pendulum that's maybe swung too far is coming back to a place of balance. And that place of balance is different for every business. A pragmatic approach to assessing what that balance is in your business is the smart pathway forward. The best thing business owners can do is set aside their personal values and beliefs and listen openly to their key stakeholders so that they can understand what's right for their business. That's the pathway forward. With this information and the help of a skilled HR team like Synergy, businesses are in the best position to find a balanced approach to DEI that helps the company achieve their overall vision. It's the right time for businesses to be putting the thought and effort into defining a better and more balanced approach to DEI. And if you're ready to take those steps into creating a thriving workplace, we're happy to be the HR team that partners with you.